Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. Our topic today is brought to you by Peggy Spear with the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. Today, Peggy has brought flower power. Peggy,
Flower power.
take it away.
All right. Let me pull this bad boy up.
Yay.
All right. Everyone's seeing it, right? We're not having any technical
Yes,
difficulties.
yes.
That's
All right.
great. We got it.
Yeah,
We
good.
see the
Step one in the
turquoise.
right direction.
Morning, Nancy.
Morning, Nancy.
Oh, that's
Wow.
All right. So today we're talking about flower power. And I think it was Dawn that mentioned or referenced an installation that went out in late November and will be up for the full year. So this upcoming November. So when everyone's vaccinated and feeling comfortable, you'll be able to make it in and see this gorgeous installation. It's entitled In the Night Garden, and it's by an artist, and her name, and she created it. She created parts of it specifically for us, and parts of it were brought already fabricated that she created in her studio and was able to reintegrate into the installation for us.
I'm sorry, would you tell me her name again, please?
Sure, it's Natasha Bowden.
Bowden, thank you.
And she's a professor at Rice University. Is it Rice University or University of Rice?
Rice. I think it's
Rice.
Rice. Yeah.
So she's down in Houston and came up in November for about a little under 2 weeks and was installing while we were open to the public. So you could come in and watch her tinkering and getting everything installed. So I must warn you, a picture is not doing justice to the three-dimensionality of this artwork.
I know.
So we can talk about it a little. And then I brought a 5-minute video, a little documentary the museum created with a local filmmaker to kind of explain the process of how she made this. So that will do more justice than anything I can do in explaining. But we can kind of talk about what we see. So what jumps out at you first?
It's big.
It's big.
It's big.
The size.
It gets your attention.
I like that chartreuse color.
I do too.
Right, like down here?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's very large and you can kind of see it's layered. So there's stuff on the wall and then it comes out probably a third into the gallery. And it's very much like a stage set, the way things are kind of stacked and layered. And you have to like get your goggles out. Right here, you can see it's a PVC pipe that's helping create some of the layers. So when you're in the space, when you're looking right at it, you can't see it, but you enter the space from the sides, you'll see it. And you're not necessarily supposed to see it, but there's no other way to enter that artwork. So it's not necessarily part of her design, but it is there.
So Peggy, are the shadows part of the display, or are they just real shadows?
No, this is something she actually added on later. So we didn't think, we knew she was going to have this artwork that was coming out at us. But then when she was here, she was really interested in adding these shadows. So that was a fun surprise we kind of learned as she was installing. And what's funny is the shadows don't match.
Yeah, that's what
That's what I was noticing.
Yeah.
Like real life.
It's very cool. And it's funny because you can walk on these. This vinyl is made. I mean, there's no avoiding it when you're really in the space.
So people could walk on it, you say?
Yeah, you can walk right on it, but it's funny kind of seeing visitors when they're in that space because some of them kind of skirt around, they're walking around the shadow. And now there's scuff marks all over it. So people I think realize, oh, well, I can walk on this. But in the beginning, it was like, ooh, what can I touch? What can I not touch? This looks really exciting.
So the shadows are painted?
Say that again?
The shadows are painted?
No, it's vinyl. It's like
Vinyl.
a museum, a vinyl we can use that we can put on the on the terrazzo, but then
Okay.
we can peel it up and
So
it won't do any damage.
So they're cutouts then, really?
Mhm.
They're vinyl cutouts?
Yeah, vinyl. She hand cut them out.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, hand done.
Yeah.
That would be a big cricket machine if she weren't doing it by hand.
Right. Exactly.
My wife doesn't have one that big, I know that.
Right. Yeah. Her little scrapbook size type one wouldn't cut it for this project.
Well,
quite
she's
literally.
got an even bigger one than next larger size up to make her too, and that's still not that big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she did a lot of the hand cutting on this.
So is the shadow part of the night portion of the description, that there's a difference between the garden between day and night?
No. So part of her inspiration for this was a number of different things. This idea that traditionally women would paint florals that, were botanical studies, or it was just something to pass time, a watercolor. And she's trying to turn that on its side, that like, this doesn't feel like a botanical garden. It doesn't feel quite threatening, but it doesn't feel welcoming.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of these, the shadow to me seems more threatening than the colorful flowers themselves. What do you think?
Spiky and spiny.
Yeah. Not a warm and cuddly, oh, look at this bed of flowers. It doesn't have that. So by putting it in a night garden, there's that element of unknown. There's an element of kind of not scared, but not seeing things to the full picture. So you're kind of seeing a distorted version of what might be. Not nightmarish, but
yeah.
oh, go
The
ahead.
darker blue one looks almost like a Venus flytrap to me.
Right
Yeah,
here.
could be. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So she, some of these flowers too aren't botanically accurate. So she's
No.
combining
No.
She's combining things that kind of look like an aspen leaf, things that sort of look like a hibiscus. Maybe that has a little bit of a daisy to it. She's not accurately depicting, which is part of that buck against women traditionally depicting, these botanical studies were meant to be correct depictions of what that species was. And that's not what she's doing here. She was really influenced by by Greek and Roman mythology, by children's books, children's poems. Maurice Sendak, the author of Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, yes.
He has another book, and I'm the name is escaping me right now, but it's about, there's a magical garden type of situation happening. And so that really spoke to her, and she has children, so she was, kind of in tune to these things as she's reading her children these books.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit of her influence, and she's really interested in kind of presenting not what you're expecting.
It's more like an Alice in Wonderland type of scene.
Yeah.
Well, and if you notice, there's color on one end and it gets less at the other.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think it's interesting because the shadow shapes remind me of the shapes and characters in the Dr. Seuss.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Lorax kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, you're picking up then on that, the children's book kind of fantasy, fantastical depiction of flowers. So I'm going to play this video and I'm hoping you all can see it.
So far.
Okay.
In that garden.
Something like floral arrangement, which has been over history.
Can you turn it up just a little?
I'm trying, I've got it up as loud as it will go. So there are captioning. There is captioning now.
Arranging it in such a way that
Well, we just can't hear it. The making of the night garden.
Oh, is yours touchscreen? No.
Mm-mm.
Actually what led me initially to cut paper as well, which historically has been kind of a feminine craft. It also has a lot of potential to be something, kind of
Well, I've done it now.
beyond
Hmm.
those sort of limited expectations. I'm just interested in kind of breaking up or breaking down or pushing back against these limited ways of
Okay.
craft and also, nature. When I look
There we go.
at source
There you go.
material for the work that I make,
Well, I look at
I
source,
look at a
look
lot
at
of
a lot of
other
artists and
and
writers'
writers that
interpretations.
interpretations of the natural world.
Hmm.
I love looking at kind of early 1900s and earlier, before the camera kind of takes over as the main way to document the natural world. I find that when artists and naturalists were drawing everything by hand,
Interesting.
they get it wrong a lot because we're human. We're not. There's sort of human error that runs through those drawings and actually makes them very beautiful. I like the human error, and I actually think the human error is really revealing of something deeper, which is like this impulse to kind of connect and place oneself in a larger
I
world.
don't know. I didn't remember.
The real, especially with the installation works, the real creative process truly happens on site. So I make a lot of kind of individual pieces before I arrive, but then all the kind of configuration and composition and figuring out how the work is going to grow in a space it's not pre-planned. It's very improvisational.
Mm.
So I'm interested in kind of deconstructing old symbolism that we've through time tended to attach onto nature or gender. And there's an interesting connection to the florography, floral dictionaries, is that they were used by both men and women, but used more frequently by women because women were restrained much more in how they could actually express anything direct, and they had a very limited allowance for what they could express verbally. Even though my installation isn't like a direct illustration of the real natural world, my hope is that people can come in and kind of maybe have a renewed sense of how they might go out and experience real nature.
That's horrible.
If people can kind of come in, think about nature in the context of my work, if that thought lingers as they leave the work, then the hope is that it might kind of manifest.
It's not in, he's not at the house, no.
Kind of take that back out into the world, think about the world around them in a slightly different way. So you're kind of able to see the dimensionality that's not captured in this image.
So those are actually individual pieces that can be moved.
Yes, they're on casters. So some of them are like kind of clustered. So like,
Okay.
Like this little chunk right here is all one, and they're on casters. So she was able, as you saw in the video, to manipulate till she got it to where she wanted it to actually sit.
So that helps too when you move. If you have to move it, you don't have to move the whole big thing. You can move it in pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from like a logistical standpoint, moving an installation like that because parts of it came up from her studio, that would have been really difficult to, doable, but a lot more finagling and
Right, yeah.
and make sure everything stayed intact.
How long did you say she was there to install this?
About 2 weeks.
About 2
And-
weeks? Okay.
Yeah, and she came during like office hours. She was working, unlike the installation we had before. Remember, this was the gallery that had tissue paper lining the entire wall. That was
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
This is the same space. He was working 20 hours a day for 2 solid weeks. She was just, she was able to get a lot done in a regular 9 to 5 type of situation. All right, so this is here for a while. If you have any interest, you can't miss it when you walk in. So I invite you to that space before it goes down in November.
Thank you.
I learned
Our
a new
next
word.
piece- Say that again, Martha.
I learned a new word,
What was that?
floriography.
Oh, interesting. Did she say that?
She did. I've never
didn't
heard
know
it
that.
before.
Well, we're keeping this florography train going, I guess. And we're looking at something very two-dimensional, very different than what we just saw, but plant-related nonetheless. So can you tell me what you see?
It almost looks like clipping pieces off of I don't know, it's a little plant that has berries or something on it. Or little buds,
Yeah, or flowers.
flowers.
Baby's
just-
breath.
Just clippings on it and then they're lined, clippings put down on the,
It looks like baby's breath to me.
could be, yeah.
So all really good guesses. It is a plant. It's the Pycnantha, I think is how you say it. Pycnantha? Yeah, Pycnantha is how you say this. It's a type of acacia that you would find in Australia. And what it is it's seeds. And she would x-ray these seeds and then use the the digital x-ray, and then she would clip and copy pieces over and over again to create what you see. So this was not how it looked when it was laying down on the x-ray machine. She then manipulated what she took x-rays of to create this pattern. So like, for example, you can see this detail right here, and then you see the same detail down here, but it flipped.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay. So it's photography. It's technically photography because she's using x-ray film. But then she's going in and manipulating it on her computer in a program. And then she's printing it out on an inkjet print. And it's pretty big. I know, Don, you're one for the numbers. It's about 30 inches by 30 inches large.
Wow.
So it's pretty big. And does anyone know anything about this plant I'd never heard of, and it's an Australian plant, but does anybody know about this particular plant?
No.
So it germinates after wildfire.
Oh, okay.
And so she's trying to create what looks like the wind blowing as the aftermath of a wildfire. So that's it. While it's beautiful, she's connecting the beauty to what might happen in nature.
Interesting.
So she's a professor at UNT.
Fascinating.
As she's a photography professor, and for 10 years, this project was going on. She traveled throughout the world to different seed banks in places throughout Europe and North America, Eastern Europe, Northern Europe. So she went to 4 different continents to look at these seed banks.
so why does that one have a copyright on it? I've not seen that on anything else.
When artists are living, she's still living, she's still creating, and it's not been in public domain for long enough. A lot of times once they enter public domain, after I think it's 50 years typically, then you can use it however you want. You don't have to credit anybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like a legality
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Peggy.
Yeah, of course. I
So
know,
if
and
you-
sometimes you'll see things like estate of, even though we've owned the artwork for 100+ years, you know, we haven't been around 100+ years, but we've had it since the beginning. We still have to get clearing rights to use images in certain ways.
Okay.
So when you go into our database, this is like the nerdy part of it. When you go into the database, you'll see if you have to use a credit line whenever you reproduce the image. So
Interesting.
you got more of an answer than you wanted on that one, Myra.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It also means if somebody wants to use this in a publication, they have to have permission.
Yes. Yeah.
They
Or
can't,
there's
they
usually
just can't take it and put it in there. It has to
Yeah.
have permission to do it. Yeah.
Yes, and because we own the artwork now, we are granted the permission, but we have to include that copyright.
Right.
And sometimes you have to pay to use it, depending if it's educational. You're sometimes exempt from paying. But since we're recording this, I want to make sure we give
Right.
props where
Yeah.
props are due. But yeah, so she created several. This is the one we have in our collection, but she's done this for all different types of seeds that you can find throughout the world. And she started at the seed bank that's in the very, very, very north of Norway. It's in the Arctic
Mm-hmm.
Circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was working with the scientists there, and she was able to photograph or X-ray these seeds. And this particular seed bank is high enough that if all of the polar caps melted, the water wouldn't hit it, and deep enough into the mountain that if the world went black, it would still be okay in the mountain.
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh,
So there are about 1,400 seed banks throughout the world.
Hmm.
But that one in Norway is one of the more, it's like one of the creme de la creme. What do we think of this artwork? It's not really like anything we've seen before. An X-ray, it's very abstract, but of very real things.
It just looks
Right.
like dots. Looks like dots in front of my eyes.
Yeah, it does. It looks like floaters in my eyeball.
Yeah, floaters. All of you make eye doctor appointments after this session.
Uh,
All
I
right.
think Myra thought there was a flock of birds without looking at it too closely.
yeah. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's so abstract, and when it's larger, you're able to kind of see a little more clearly the details. But if I didn't tell you it was seeds, you might not have ever guessed it.
no.
Mhm.
All right, so we're shifting gears again to something very traditional, a botanical study, so to speak. So what do we see here?
Bouquet of flowers.
Simple enough. I won't even pretend to know a thing about flowers in terms of identifying species and anything. So are there any of you, and I'm sure there are, who can start to identify what species of flowers we are seeing?
I have no idea.
No.
There's some baby's breath in there, which I thought, and you can see why I thought that other thing was that it's the same kind of structure.
Yeah, very delicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish John was awake. He'd probably know all of them.
I'm so jealous of those people who can just rattle off, oh, that's this, and you don't plant this then, and that
He
is not
used
me.
to work at a florist.
Oh, so I'm sure he knows.
It almost
so
looks
this
like stalks of wheat.
Yeah.
Not, but I know it almost
Yeah.
looks like that.
Well,
You know.
Yeah.
you know, it looks like kind of hops.
Yeah,
Hops
it
kind of
does.
looks
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and this is very traditional. I'm sure, do any of you have artwork like this even hanging in your home somewhere, or kind of that just simple, beautiful botanical print, maybe in a powder room or a dining room, something like that?
I have an Oriental piece similar to this. Yeah.
You know, and this was, this type of print is what Natasha Bowden, the first artist we looked at with the large, stage-like installation, was initially inspired by. It was referencing these women who would
don't think so.
paint these watercolors, often the perception is, oh, this was just something she was doing to kill time or a nice little activity before tea. While that's true of some of the artists, a lot of times these women were doing it to help move the field forward because they were talented. This was something that was making money for them. So unfortunately, art history doesn't give much attention to these artists, these female artists. Bye, Steve.
Bye. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you,
See you,
Peggy.
Steve.
Yeah, see you
Bye.
next week.
Wonderful.
So a lot of there's almost nothing I could find on Lucia Bliss, but there were many female artists like her where they were creating. They're in art collections, but almost nothing is known about the artist's life. So do we like this depiction of flowers or this more? Where does the line fall?
I like this one. This
Yeah.
one more.
I like
I
the
like
color.
the
I like the
traditional.
color.
Yeah, they're very different styles.
I think the red flowers look a little like poppies.
Yep, that's what I
That's
said.
what
I
Myra
wondered.
said.
Good eye.
Yeah. And then these might look a little like pansies to me, but I'm not even going to claim to know if they are or not. I think pansies even grow in the fall. I don't even know. But they're
They look a
beautiful.
little like pansies to me too, but not enough for me to have said that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, spring bouquet. That's the only clue we have is these were probably things you'd find March, April, May. We
I
got
like
one
Don's
more,
idea.
and we've talked, talking about in the past close-ups of beautiful plants versus the larger, taking a larger picture of those plants in nature. And so this is a close-up of plants in nature. And the title, we know what we're looking at, but can anyone say?
I would not have guessed.
Oh,
It
you
looked-
wouldn't have? What
it-
did you think initially then, Martha?
I thought it was tumbleweed.
Oh, well, you're not too far off.
Cactus.
Cactus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cactus blossoms. And so Elliot Porter took this photograph in Big Bend. And it's part of, this is one photograph of a portfolio he did of 12 photographs that he took throughout the Western United States. I think it's called Western Landscapes is the larger series. And so in this series, he's got photographs from Utah, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Montana, and Washington. And so this was the Texas Connect for him. What do you think?
I like it.
It's pretty.
I don't know the name.
Do you think those colors are true to nature? Do you think they're softer, they're crisper? What do you, is that how you would see it in nature?
Cactus is this exactly.
Yeah, I think it depicts
Yeah.
nature is that so that the beautiful things can be in dangerous places or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, very good.
I think it's probably true color. I have had a cactus in my front yard that bloomed unreal yellow flowers.
Oh,
I mean,
how
they
good.
just are so vibrant and
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah, what a nice color.
Daddy, do you have your microphone up on your head? Because we
Yeah,
couldn't hear what
dude.
you were saying.
I
Oh,
did.
thank you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I just said that's a familiar cactus, but I don't know the name of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know the name of it either. And I had one that had a hot pink flower like this. I could not kill that thing, which is why it lasted, because I'm not good with plants at all. But as the cactus grew and the blossom stayed, the blossom kind of like off-centered. So then eventually the blossom was down here, but the cactus was growing up that way.
Oh yeah.
But for it being something very prickly, like you were saying, Don, kind of a beauty and something that might be uncomfortable. The beauty, I feel like, is what comes out first, not the
Yes.
the threat
Yeah.
of being pricked or this. You could never pick those flowers. It all complements in such a soft and beautiful way.
Yes.
And Elliot Porter,
I-
he just knew what he was doing out in nature.
Oh, I love Elliot Porter.
When I first saw it, I thought it was flowers growing out of dead grass.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yes.
Yeah. Here the title does help us kind of put together what we're seeing.
You've definitely taken pictures from 4 different realms today.
Can
Yeah.
you briefly flash up the other ones that I missed? I came in about halfway.
Sure. So we've got this one we just spoke of, this photograph, and then the one before is this installation. That's a temporary installation for the next year. And this is kind of, it's turning up grainy on the computer, so I apologize for that.
Peggy, is that video that you played available for us to look at through the museum?
Yes, if you go on our museum website and just type in the night garden in the search bar, you'll hit the exhibition page, and this video is at the bottom of that exhibition page on our website.
Thank you. Janine, you would love that.
Okay.
That explains a little bit how, what inspired her and how this came together.
Okay.
So
Thank
these
you.
are, I mean, we could literally do flower power every Wednesday for the rest of the year. We have so many flowers in our
Yes.
I
collection.
know, yeah.
But
You can do
I'll
it again.
we'll hit up some other themes. I think next week is water,
National parks.
national parks.
National Park.
Yeah, we're hitting camping season, folks. This is the time of year you want to go. All right, so I'll join you next week on our national parks tour, and I hope you all have a really good week in between.
Well, thank you very much.
So
Peggy.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Welcome.
Peggy.
Thank you.
Peggy,
Bye,
have
Dan.
a great day.
Oh, thank you. You all too. See you
Good
soon.
choices, Peggy.
Oh, thank
Kiss that baby for us. Let's take a look
Well,
at what we've got going for tomorrow. Jeopardy 60s music. I am your host for tomorrow, and we are going to have such a good time. The Jeopardy game has musical clips, so we are all going to take a trip back to the 60s.
All
All
right.
right.
Yes, and one game should last us almost an hour because of the clips. It's
Wow.
going to be a fabulous day.
Yeah.
Now, we had some things we needed to talk about. Hans, I'm really grateful that you were able to log on today.
Yes.
I understood that Yetta is away this morning.
Yes,
Well, we're glad that you made it on.
thank you.
It's good to see you. Let's see. And Paulette, you are on mute. If you want to unmute or get your daughter to unmute and tell us about Phil.
Oh, tell us about Phil.
Yes, please.
Well, he is evidently doing okay. We haven't been actually in to see him yet, so we're going to be going there shortly.
May we ask where he is and what happened, or is that too personal?
He had a procedure done, a prostate procedure. Was admitted yesterday, pretty routine, should be just fine. As long as the doctor examines him at noon, then he can do what he needs to do, he'll be released at noon.
We will have wait. Yeah.
We will hope for that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking.
Well, Kristen, it's great to meet you. Are you local?
I am. I live very close to my dad and Paulette here in Keller, but I'm building a house a little bit out in the country, but we won't be too far. And I teach here in Keller, and
She's a school teacher, kindergartner.
I took the days off to have some fun
Awesome.
with Paulette.
That's wonderful.
Will you come
Glad you
back
can
and
help
join us?
Phil and Paulette out.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
we would love that. Who
Yeah.
else has something they'd like to talk about or share today before we go? Now remember, we have cafe until 11:30 today.
Yep.
Lord.
Well, I was just
30.
going to give everybody a little insight to the cookies that we made yesterday.
Please do that.
At the end of my baking session, I had to make a trip to the store for some more cocoa powder. The last of the final batch, there was a little more than the big scoop. And so I made it into a round and a big scoop. And when it was done, it looked like the pictures, the cookies in the picture.
Oh,
Oh, excellent.
And
Good for you.
when my I actually made it with white chocolate chips because that's what my son wanted to try.
Okay.
And he said, this one looks like what they're supposed to look like in the picture. But
Do we
it
need
was
to, do we
about,
need to send the address so that
it
we
was, it was about this big around,
Wow.
Oh, my word.
and it was wrinkly around the edges. But this recipe was not consistent. Remember yesterday we talked about that first batch that I made, how much lighter in color it was?
That's right.
The rest of that batch did not turn out light in color.
Really?
Oh, my word. How
So
crazy.
every single batch, of course, we tried 3 different scoops of different sizes.
Right.
None of the batches baked exactly the same.
Huh.
So
That's interesting.
it's probably not a recipe that I'll use again. Simply just because it feels like you can't control it.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's too many variables and it all comes out different.
Hmm.
So I labeled your cookies for those of you who were with us yesterday. So you know which ones have dark chocolate and which ones have semi-sweet. But some of them are flat, some of them have a little bit of puff, some of them, they were just very inconsistent.
And you like consistency and round.
Yes.
Yes.
I can relate to that, Gail.
So, but they taste good.
Good. That's important.
The
Doesn't matter
last,
what they look like as long as they taste good.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
really.
some of them are very soft and a little bit gooey. The ones that are still left at home, they're very soft and have the white chocolate chips in them, but they're very soft. So if you pick it up by one side, the other side of it's going to fall.
So how can we get some of your cookies?
Well, I've already mailed out yesterday's batch, but we will be baking cookies again. Let me tell you when that is, and you can
May
put it on your
18th.
calendar.
May 18th.
May 18th. So put
Okay.
May 18th on your calendar. And if
Okay.
you're with us on May the 18th, then you'll receive a box of cookies.
Okay. Right.
No, but they are in the mail. So some of you may get them this afternoon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
We were just talking about how late the mailman comes and how long we have to wait.
Well, my mail comes very late. Sometimes it doesn't arrive till 6 p.m.
Yeah, ours comes late.
The mail, the
I thought
lawn,
ours
Oh,
was
no.
sooner.
the lawn service came to Phil and Paulette's house this morning and they leveled the mailbox.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I'm gonna tease my dad and tell him I did it just to watch him for a minute.
So you just leaned against it and it fell over, right?
Yeah, Phil,
That's what I'm gonna tell him.
y'all know this, but Philip's in the hospital.
We told him.
Have we already told him?
Yeah. And we'll say a prayer for him, Paulette.
Yeah.
We
Well,
want him.
we're gonna go see him shortly, so
You give him our best, will you?
I will definitely tell him that. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't we say goodbye from here and move along to the cafe? Anybody that wants to hang will hang, and I'll stop the recording at this point, and we can just roll on into chat. How's that?
All
That's
right.
good.